just offer a very warm welcome to everybody to this Buddhist Society Monday Theravada class. I think you all know that I'm Sister Candasiri. I've been a nun. I joined the community in 1979, so coming up to my 43rd birthday in the Sangha. And mostly living at Amaravati or Chithurst, and now living in a small hermitage up in Scotland, which is where I am right now, in front of our shrine here. And as always, we'll begin with a little bit of chanting, part of the evening chanting, and Wendy will do a screen share. We'll chant in English this evening, so you know what it means. And I invite you to join in just to the extent that you feel comfortable. Please stay muted if you're going to be chanting. That's most helpful. And first of all, I'll turn to the shrine and I'll light the candles and incense. So. The Blessed One, the Lord, who fully attained perfect enlightenment, through the teaching which he expounded so well, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, to these the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we render with offerings our rightful homage. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, still had compassion for later generations. May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Now let us pay our preliminary homage to the Buddha. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened One. Homage to the blessed, noble and perfectly enlightened one. Now let us chant the recollection of the Buddha. A good word of the Blessed One's reputation has spread as follows. He, the Blessed One, is indeed the pure one, the perfectly enlightened one. He is impeccable in conduct and understanding, the accomplished one, the knower of the worlds. He trains perfectly those who wish to be trained. He is teacher of gods and humans. He is awake and holy. In this world with its gods, demons, and kind spirits, its seekers and sages, celestial and human beings, he has by deep insight revealed the truth. He has pointed out the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. He has explained the spiritual life of complete purity in its essence and conventions. I chant my praise to the Blessed One. I bow my head to the Blessed One. Now let us chant the recollection of the Dhamma. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading inwards to be experienced individually by the wise. Now let us chant the recollection of the Sangha. They are the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, who have practiced directly, who have practiced insightfully, those who practice with integrity. That is the 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of noble being. These are the Blessed One's disciples. Such ones are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. They give occasion for incomparable goodness to arise in the world. I chant my praise to this Sangha. I bow my head to this Sangha. I need to apologize. Some of you may have got a bit lost there. I thought we were doing the morning chanting, and just a minor slip. So I hope you found me again. We have a chance now to determine the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. And I'm just wondering if anybody be willing to make the formal request on behalf of the group. Is there anybody who feels comfortable doing that? Probably easiest if you just say, and then you can do it. I know sometimes Carola is available. I don't know if you're here this evening, Carola, or Mark Pierce is another person I was told about, or Gilla. Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the Refuges and Precepts.
Sister, you got two hands up. I think Lisa and Mariano, I think they are willing to do it.
Okay.
We got two. I saw two hands raised, Lisa and Mariano. Yeah.
So maybe Lisa, would you like to do it?
I will give it a try. It's been a little while since I've done it, so I may need to see it on the screen if that's okay.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So you're going to be asking from a nun on behalf of a group, so it'll be the plural form.
So it would be, is it Mayam Ia?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. And you'll take them out loud and everyone else can take them muted.
Thank you. Mayam Ia Tisaranena Saha Panchasilani Achama Dutiyampi Mayam Ia Tisaranena Saha Panchasilani Achama Tatiyampi Mayam Ia Tisaranena Saha Panchasilani Achama.
I'm going to recite Asa 3 times and invite you to repeat that after me. And after that, we'll go line by line. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhamman saranam gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhamman saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhamman saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Saranaggamana nititang.
Amaya.
Panatipata verapmani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Anatipata varapmani sikaparam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adhinadhana verapmani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Adhinadhana varapmani sikaparam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kame sumi chachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Kamezumi chakara varapmani sikaparam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musawada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada varapmani sikaparam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Duratmeraya majapamadatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Suramera maja pamadatana varapmani sikaparam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani pancha sikapadani silena sughatinyanti silena bhoga sampada silena nibhutinyanti tasma silang visotaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So thank you very much for making the request on behalf of the group. And so this is a chance for us to refresh our commitment to living carefully and responsibly, following the guidelines that were established probably long before the time of the Buddha, but certainly formalized during the Buddha's lifetime. These guidelines that support us in avoiding speech or action that can harm others, and also, more importantly, that are harmful to ourselves, even if we seem to end up with what we want when we lie, when we cheat, when we steal, when we take advantage of others. There's not a very good feeling. And so we may have made a few mistakes since we last took the precepts, but now we have a chance to acknowledge those and to really start afresh. So I see this as being a very significant ceremony for those who are practicing according to the Buddhist teachings, like establishing a very good, clear foundation for our meditation and for our practice of liberating the heart from suffering. It's helpful because we need to look at our minds. If we're going to keep the precepts, we need to look at our minds. We need to understand the energies that drive us, that cause us to do the things that we do and say, and that when we're aware of them, when we're in contact with them, then we have a chance to practice restraint, deliberately to not do certain things. So it's interesting hearing Ajahn Sucitto talking one time about the religious life and saying how it's partly what people do, but more importantly, it's what they don't do. So they don't cause harm to other creatures. They don't take advantage of other creatures, either sort of through physical violence or taking things, exploiting them for pleasure, sexuality, sexual pleasure, not lying or using speech in ways that can cause division and confusion among people, but rather avoiding that and cultivating speech that supports harmony, that supports understanding, that leads people to live in skillful ways, leads to people getting together, learning how to cooperate. And yes, just avoiding the use of intoxicants, which make the precepts much, much more difficult to keep, because our judgment is distorted. Things that we think, normally think are not okay, suddenly they become okay when we're intoxicated. And that can lead to very harmful consequences. So we include that in the undertakings that I always like to emphasize at the start of the class. So it's time now for us to spend a little time in meditation, a chance to create the conditions for the mind to calm down, to settle. So it's not a matter of grappling with our thoughts, struggling with our memories that may arise of what we've done today or what we did yesterday, or struggling with the plans that are coming up compulsively. It's not like going to battle, but more deliberately turning aside from those things and focusing on something that is going to be calming, something that's going to support a settling of the mind. And generally, I encourage focusing on the body and focusing on the process of the body breathing. But first of all, just taking a moment or two to check your posture. I'm going to rearrange my posture, sit in a cross-legged position, which I find helpful. So if you're sitting on the floor, you might like to do that. And if you prefer to sit in a chair, of course, that's completely fine. Or a stool. So we find a position that is reasonably comfortable, and at the same time there's a sense of poise, a sense of balance. We're nicely upright as far as possible, head held up. So taking time at the end of probably what's been a busy day, a full day, many activities, just to focus on the simple fact of sitting here. Wherever you are, you're sitting. The body is sitting. So just notice that. It's not something we think about, it's something that we're aware of. We're aware of the contact with the chair or the floor or the stool, feeling of pressure. So the base, we're aware of the trunk of the body arising up from the base, very much like the trunk of a tree. Aware of the shoulders at the top of the main trunk, and then the neck, and then the head, the uppermost part of the body. Finding a nice position for the head, nicely balanced. And you may find it helpful just to sway the body slightly and just seeing if you can find the nicely balanced, upright position so the body feels at ease and at the same time alert. Practice of meditation is about being alert, about being aware, noticing. I'm going to guide us in just a gentle sweeping through the body, relaxing. I usually use the breath, breathing in through the heart center, center of the chest, directing the breath to the different parts of the body, releasing tension from the different muscles. So I encourage you to join me in this, or if you prefer to not pay any attention, that's also absolutely fine. But I offer this as a way of just supporting a settling, an attuning to the body. So I always begin with the head, with the scalp, the top, the sides, the back of the head. Gently breathing through, releasing tension. Feeling the scalp, the skin on the head just soften. Similarly with the face, with the front part of the head. The forehead and around the eyes, the cheeks, the mouth. A softening, a loosening, a slackening of the face. We're not engaging in any interactions with other people. Doesn't matter one bit what we look like. We can just let the face go soft. As we breathe through, releasing tension from around the forehead, the eyes, cheeks, and mouth. Coming to the back of the neck and the shoulder area. And there may be quite a lot of tension here. If you've been working or traveling or doing something that required a lot of focus, sometimes there's naturally a kind of tensing up, the shoulders hunch up. And so use this time just to breathe through and to allow a softening, a dropping of the shoulders. It's almost as though they kind of roll back rather than hunching forwards. An opening of the chest area. As the shoulders drop. We notice the arms, the upper arms, the forearms, the wrists, palms, fingers, breathing down through the arms, releasing tension in the arms and the hands, allowing the hands to rest on the knees or in the lap, however is comfortable. Bringing the awareness now into the trunk of the body, beginning with the chest area, the heart center. Breathing in through the heart center and with the out breath, releasing any tension, any tightness or constriction around the heart. So that there's a softening, an opening in the heart center. Moving now into the solar plexus, the middle part of the body, where sometimes we can accumulate a lot of tension, a lot of agitation. When there's fear, anxiety, anger, or excitement even, there can be a lot of activity in the solar plexus. So we notice And allow the breath to soothe, to soften, to settle in the solar plexus area. And now take a very long, slow, easy breath right down into the belly. And take your time with this so the whole trunk is filled up. And then a long, slow, easy exhalation from the belly. Just allowing a sense of deep release, deep ease. Doing this 2 or 3 times. Long, slow, easy inhalation. Perhaps a slight pause. And then a long, slow, easy exhalation. A gentle release, a letting go of all of our burdens, our cares, our worries. This wonderful, gentle, easy out-breath. Tending to the legs now, breathing down through the thighs, the muscles around the knees, calves, ankles, and feet. So that the legs are as comfortable as they can be. If you find pain accumulating around the knees or the hip joints, then taking a moment to release tension in this way could be enough to relieve that discomfort. And if it isn't, if it's still painful, then gently change position. That's absolutely fine. And finally, attending to the back part of the body, beginning at the base of the skull and little by little, taking the awareness down through the muscles around the spine, in the neck area, the back of the shoulder area, the back of the rib cage, the chest, down into the waist, and right down to the base of the spine, so that the body is held nicely upright, but without any extra strain. Continuing to be aware of the body breathing, the in-breath, the out-breath, as it's happening here, now. Using a word or a phrase, if that's helpful, to steady your awareness. Secular words, breathing in, breathing out. Or the Buddhist mantra, Bud, as you breathe in, Do, as you breathe out. Or some of you may like to try visualizing the breath, like with the waves on the ocean. The in-breath is when the wave comes back, when there's a drawing back. And then with the out-breath is when the wave breaks, crashes onto the shore. A pause, and then once again a drawing back with the in-breath. Energy gathering, and then the wave breaking. Some of you might like to try that visualization. Using the breath as a focus for our awareness, rather than following the thoughts that will inevitably arise, that tend to pull us, to draw us into the past or into the future. Instead, we enjoy the breath as it's happening here, now. Try to keep the mind bright, clear. If you find you're getting a bit drowsy, a bit drifty, dreamy, then it's a sign you need to put more effort into the in-breath. Focus on that, gathering the energy. A long, slow, easy inhalation, brightening the mind. And if you're really sleepy, you may need to open the eyes, just so you stay attentive, alert, present, this moment. If you're feeling tense or agitated, then that can be a sign to focus more on the out-breath, the releasing, relaxing, the settling, the calming. Each one of us needs to discern for ourselves and adjust our practice accordingly. Keeping it rather simple. Just this moment, just this breath. And for the last few moments, continuing to enjoy this gentle rhythm of the body breathing, you can introduce the words, may this being be well. May she or may he be well and at ease. Some words that are meaningful to you, just suggesting this attitude of kindliness towards yourself. So for me, may she be well, may Candasiri be well. And of course, you adjust it according to who you are, with the intention, may this being be well, calm, settled, balanced. Thank you. I think one of the things we can tend to do in our particular culture is to undervalue ourselves and undervalue the significance of our lives. It's almost as though we've been brought up to think that we don't really count. That there's or that we're not good enough. I talk to a lot of people who think that they're not good enough. And one of the things I was thinking in the meditation just towards the end, and contemplating how each one of us does count. Each one of us is a very significant presence. Even if we feel that our practice isn't very good, that the mind wanders, that we maybe have a little bit of, could improve on our sila, our keeping of the precepts, even if we appraise ourselves in that way, the fact that each one is interested, that each one has the faith that this practice is possible and doable. Each one of us is making the attempt to live out the Buddha's teachings within our own situation, our own circumstances. That's a very remarkable phenomenon. When you think about all the people, say, living in London, billions, no, not billions, millions, a lot of people, and how most of them are living their lives and spending their time just attending a class like this, recollecting the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, those refuges that are not just nice ideas, but they're something that we can really turn to in our lives, that can provide a support, that can provide a steadiness, inner steadiness, when things are difficult or confusing. Even when they're difficult and confusing internally, we feel really confused and upset or angry or full of vindictive, vengeful thoughts. Even when there are those things happening in the heart, the refuges are always there as a resource. We can be aware of that. We can observe our own minds, the thinking, the inner ranting and raving and blaming and judging and criticizing ourselves and each other. There can be the awareness of that and the intention to not let that rage flow out into speech or action. So mindfulness is not about always having nice thoughts and doing nice things. It's about that awareness, staying in touch. So this in itself is a very remarkable thing. So we begin to see the precept as like a kind of container, like a big furnace, within which there can be a lot of activity, but it's contained, it's safe. There's that energy, that heat, and it's contained. Learning how to do this, well, we learn through practice. It's not that we're born with that interest or with that ability. Babies are very good at having external tantrums. It's all out there. Screaming, the yelling, the kicking, the punching. It's all there happening. Their rage is unloosed. But for a baby, it doesn't really cause too much harm, and it might be very upsetting and disturbing for the parents, but you're not going to cause a lot of problems because that's what babies do. But as adults, if we don't, those who haven't learned, who aren't aware that there is this possibility, a lot of harm can be done. Speaking recently about rage, about anger, and how it's a kind of energy that when it's really understood, can be put to very good use. It's not all bad by any means. When it's properly directed, we can actually use it in a very constructive way to bring great benefit. So when we contemplate the refuges, when they become a reality for us in our lives, when we contemplate the precepts, then they too become something of which we recognize the value. When we attune to the Dhamma, to the present moment, when we're aware of how it is right now, which is a skill that we cultivate through our regular meditation practice, we're much more in touch with life than we would be otherwise. Much more, as it were, in control. I don't really like that word control, but we're much more, we can direct our lives in skillful ways. There's a sense of inner peacefulness, inner steadiness, which affects those around us. So we might be living on our own, we might sort of not see many people, we might feel, what good is this? How can I contribute? What's really the value of my life? But my sense is that there is a great value. The people that you do have contact with, even if you don't have contact with anybody, there's an energy around people who practice. Other beings are affected by it. Told by people who have dogs and cats that they're always very happy to come and be with them when they're meditating. That they just know that this person, that there's something good about this person. There's a kind of energy about this person that's attractive, that's calming, that's soothing, that's beneficial, that makes you feel good. They know that they're safe. And I've heard it said that the precepts are like a gift. And somebody who keeps the precepts offers the gift of safety, non-harming. You're not deliberately going to hurt anybody. You can, people can relax around that. It's not that you're always going to do and say things that people are necessarily going to like. I was contemplating Kalyana Mitta, the sort of the qualities of a spiritual friendship. And a spiritual friend is one who's not always going to say what we want to hear. Some of my best spiritual friends say things that I really don't like, I really don't want to hear. But they're things that I need to hear. They're willing to point out things that maybe I wouldn't have known otherwise. Or maybe I half knew, but wasn't fully conscious. I didn't think it mattered. But when somebody else points out something, then I think, okay, so that does matter. I do need to be more careful about that. More restrained, more cautious, more ready to come forward in different ways. So contemplating this theme of spiritual friendship, my sense is that although some of you I've met at the Buddhist Society, most of you I haven't met. And we've been practicing together in these classes over the weeks, over the months. And even although we haven't met, haven't been in each other's company, there's a sense of a connection that happens. A sense of something that we share. This interest, this aspiration towards understanding. towards really understanding the ways that we make life difficult for ourselves. Understanding what we can do about it, that there is something we can do about it. Learning to observe through our meditation, through our mindfulness practice, learning how to observe the ways of thinking that maybe cause problems for ourselves. Not really seeing clearly into the nature of things. Believing that things are permanent. This body, this mind, these thoughts, these skills, these abilities, this identity is a permanent fixed phenomenon. We might believe that. Or we might live our lives apparently believing it. We might believe it intellectually. We might believe it kind of emotionally, but intellectually, if we think about it, we think, well, actually, no, it's not permanent. But there's something in us that hasn't quite got it, hasn't quite understood. Sometimes we need to be reminded, especially those of us who are getting older. I've been kind of having an internal grumble because different things are hurting and not so agile. So I sometimes need somebody to say, well, sister, you're getting older. You're going to take longer to recover. You're going to be tired more. You're going to feel pain. You're not going to be able to get around. You're not going to be able to do the things that you've been doing all these years. You're not going to be able to do it forever. But sometimes I need to be reminded. We need to remind each other that these bodies, these minds, these problems, these difficulties, these successes, these triumphs, they're all part of the flow of life. They're not fixed and solid. They're changing. And as such, there's absolutely no point grasping onto them or creating a fixed, solid identity out of them. They're not who and what we are. They're part of the flow of life. It's all right to enjoy the good times. It's all right to enjoy the successes, the triumphs. But don't hold on to them. Don't grasp them. Don't identify with them. Because they'll change. It's in their nature to change, to cease. And if we grasp onto them, we're in for a big disappointment. So we recognize that this is how life is. There are times when it's wonderful and times when it's horrible. But we do, through our practice, begin to cultivate the skill that knows that certain actions of body or speech are going to bring a harmful result. They're not going to lead us to happiness. Acting or speaking with thoughts of ill will or greed or lust or trying to get some advantage over somebody else, it doesn't usually have a happy ending. Letting go of ill will, letting go of the desire to hurt or harm or punish somebody else. This is what we need to learn how to do. Cultivating a heart of forgiveness, a willingness to keep beginning again in relation to others. So it's not a foolish trusting. Sometimes, there are certain people who we know that we can't trust, but we can still be friends with them. And I have some very, very good friends. And I'm very careful about what I tell them. I don't tell them everything because I know that I can't trust them, that they'll tell somebody else. That's all right. I don't have to dislike them because of that. I just know, Candasiri, if you don't want this to go any further, don't say anything to this person. It's okay. This is particularly important, say, with close family members. People who we're kind of bound to, through relationship, through family. They're not necessarily going to be Buddhist practitioners. They're not necessarily going to have a clue about the precepts. They're not going to have the same values as us. But we still care about them. We still love them. We still support them as best we can. So cultivating a big, generous heart is something, I think, that can bring a lot of joy. A heart of generosity, a heart of kindness, a heart of forgiveness, willing to keep beginning again. Giving the benefit of the doubt, but not in a foolish way. Recognizing the limitations that each one of us has. So a good friend is one who is willing to point out at a suitable time if there are things that we don't know we're doing wrong. Is one who's willing to encourage us towards what's wholesome, towards what's good, to remind us of our practice, to remind us of our interest in creating a happier, more peaceful world. Our interest in creating the causes for these things to come about, at least internally in our own hearts and among those around us. A good friend is one who's willing to listen to us when we're troubled, and to listen without judgment, not too ready to set us straight, but to receive with a heart of kindness. If it's appropriate, we can say something supportive, helpful perhaps, but giving space. So these days, when the world is troubled with many serious problems, difficulties, frightening problems, difficulties. I know down there in London, you've had ridiculously high temperatures. And one could see it as a freak weather conditions, or you could see it the beginning of, or a continuation of climate change. Where's it going to end? The wars, the difficulties, the economic situation, many quite serious concerns. And we can think, well, what can I do? How can I contribute, for the well-being of all? And the sense is that really we need to learn how to cooperate, how to work together in friendship, in friendliness. And those of you who've done this, who've lived in community, who've worked on projects together, will know that this is not always easy. But this is something that's definitely worth putting energy into. Because my sense is that this is what's going to be demanded, asked of humanity over future times. Sharing resources, supporting, helping one another, getting rid of those divisions, those separations, learning how to cooperate with people, whatever their gender, whatever their race, whatever their nationality, whatever their religion. We respect each other's ways, each other's religions, each other's customs, but we can still support one another, working together for our own welfare and for the welfare of all those around us. This way we can live happily and we can live without regret, knowing that we've done our best. So I offer these few thoughts for your contemplation this evening. I hope that some of it may be helpful and encouraging. And we can have a time now for, if any of you have any questions. You may want to just have a little quiet moment to start with, and then if anything arises that you would like to ask about, you can send a chat message and Wendy will read it out. Or if you want to raise your real or virtual hand, I can then invite you to unmute. So thank you for your attention. Are there any questions? Anything anyone would like to ask about?
If you don't mind, I can ask one. We are still not quite meeting in person regularly and so on. And I was wondering whether, apart from sitting, there are some practices in daily life which are recommended to keep the thing going, to collect the heart and so on.
Thank you. That's a very, very lovely question, very important question. Because, of course, sitting is not our whole practice. And sitting, as we've been doing this evening, is something that I would strongly recommend to do at least once a day for at least 10 minutes, and longer if you can, and more frequently if you can. It's a very important aspect of practice. But we need to learn how to carry that practice over into our everyday life. So when we're sitting, we're cultivating present moment awareness. We notice how the body is, we notice how the mind is. And so the Buddha encourages us to notice how the body is and how the mind is, whatever we're doing. So there's a sutta called the the Mahasati Patana Sutta, which is sort of describing different ways that we establish this quality of presence. And, talks about being aware when you're sitting, being aware when you're standing, being aware when you're walking, being aware when you're lying down. And we can extend it to include being aware when you're eating and drinking and bathing, and when you're getting dressed, being undressed, when you're just very, very ordinary things of life. Some people like to have kind of key like moments in the day, like when they switch on a light switch, say, just to be aware that you're switching on the light, you're switching it off. So a lot of it, may seem incredibly mundane, incredibly ordinary. But the thing to realize is that when you're mindful, when you're present with these things, the mind is collected, the mind is gathered. And for example, when you're doing walking, one of the things I've noticed that if I'm not mindful, I can very easily get into habits of thinking that are not always very supportive. For example, some of our habits can be quite undermining. So you might get into a lot of worry, worrying if you're going to be able to manage this, that, or the other. You might get into a lot of critical thoughts, critical about yourself or critical about somebody else or about the government, or plenty of things to be critical of. Or you might be concerned about a dear one, thinking about your son or your daughter or your parents or something. And these ways of thinking they don't conduce to a state of inner ease and well-being. They tend to just go round and round. And as we practice in this way, as we notice this, we see that actually the heart doesn't feel very good when we do a lot of that kind of thinking. So if you're just aware, say, walking around in your house or walking in the streets, or if you go to a park and are walking there, try to be aware of the kind of thinking that's going on in your mind. And if there are thoughts that are harmful, that are not particularly helpful, then see if you can change those. Think something else. Focus on something else. I mean, the most obvious, most basic thing to focus on is just the body. Just notice how the body feels to be walking. And just stay in the body as it's walking. Some people like to recollect the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha as they walk. Just saying the words Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as they walk. Some people like to focus on a particular sense, just like listening, hearing the sounds. And here at Milntuim, we have very beautiful sounds of the birds, the sound of the water flowing by, lovely, and the wind in the trees, lovely, lovely sounds that you can focus on. Obviously, the sound of traffic isn't quite so lovely, but you can use the senses, the sounds or the sights, the color, the light, as ways of establishing mindfulness, just getting yourself out of your head. You can focus on the feet touching the ground. So there are many ways that you can establish presence in daily life and cultivate wholesome thoughts. So if you're feeling very critical of yourself or very critical of someone else, see if you can replace that critical thought with another way of thinking. So if you're critical of yourself, you could think, well, Candasiri, is okay that you could have done that better, but you did the best you could. So find ways to encourage yourself. These are things that I would suggest as practices for daily life. Cultivating generosity. So that can just happen in very little ways, allowing someone else to go first. Just even smiling, I know in London it's not really done very much to make eye contact with people, but maybe in your own neighborhood, if there are people you can look at them, smile, say good morning, which might surprise them a bit, but little things like that, little gestures of kindness. I've noticed myself, if I'm feeling glum, one of the best antidotes is to do something kind for somebody else. And just smiling, just saying hello, that can just lift the heart a little bit. And this summertime, there's many beautiful things that you can enjoy, that you can celebrate. So it's like I see the practice as a kind of attuning to one's own mind and body, and learning how to support a sense of inner steadiness, balance and well-being. So those are one or two suggestions. So I would strongly encourage you to see the whole of your life as your practice, and to certainly take time to sit, but to extend into everything that you do. But make it joyful, not like a huge burden. I've got to practice all my life. Oh dear, how am I going to manage? But see it as a chance to explore and to enjoy.
Thank you.
I wish you well with that. Are there other questions?
Sister Madeline here.
Yes.
Can you say a few things about cultivating patience? At the moment, I'm involved in very bureaucratic hospital processes, and they're just kind of driving me nuts, you know, and I go into every encounter and thinking, I'm going to be really, really patient, but they always get things wrong. They don't listen to me, and I'm not managing it very well. I kind of think I'm either going to have a heart attack or kill somebody. And I just think I know it's not good for me to get frustrated and impatient this way. And I tell myself all the time, like I do a lot of sitting and cultivating loving kindness and so on. But as soon as I go into somebody's office and they've got the notes wrong or something, I just find it very, very difficult to cultivate patience. And I'd welcome any suggestions.
Well, thank you very much for raising that. I think it's a really, really important question. Really important. And I think my first question to you is, are you getting enough rest? I think I certainly encourage sitting meditation and consciously cultivating loving kindness. And there also has to be a lot of loving kindness towards yourself. You need to really take time to rest, relax, do things that you really enjoy. Get out in nature if you can. Because when you're in these kind of situations, it can seem totally relentless, as though there's absolutely no space. And it's almost as though you're trying to kind of squeeze patience and kindness out of a stone, because it just isn't there. And so, of course, when you encounter the situations that drive you nuts, they'll drive you nuts. So first of all, make sure that you that you make yourself the focus of kindness. I'd almost say that as the number one priority, because if you're inwardly at ease, there's going to be a lot more space for others in all their foolishness and ineptitude. I think sometimes language can be a little bit misleading. I think sometimes cultivating patience can sound a bit like something we've got to do, hard work, we've got to do it. And whereas I see patience as more of a kind of relaxing in a situation. You can kind of prepare yourself a little bit. If you're going into an office of somebody who won't have done what you asked them to do, and if they have done it, will have got it wrong, you can just sort of mentally acknowledge that to yourself. So you kind of, you're not going in and the old triggers are getting triggered again. Okay, I'm going to go in and she's going to have got it wrong. She's not going to have done this. She's not going to have done that. Okay, can I just breathe through that? Can I just really be present and just breathe through that? Not feeling I've got to do anything to make it all right, but just almost as though just through that quality of presence, you're actually making it all right. You're making it all right for yourself, which is the number one thing. And when you've made it all right for yourself, my sense is you'll probably be able to come forth with a response that is helpful, rather than irritated and crotchety and grumpy. It may be that you might actually say something a little bit firm, say, well, actually, I told you about this yesterday, and you've got it wrong. So, how can I help you get it right, or something? It's like just giving a little bit more space in your heart and in the situation. I'm imagining that people are getting it wrong because they're also very stressed, because the system's impossible for them as well, And so see if you can, through this just breathing and relaxing, just bring a little bit of fresh air into the whole environment. You're not going to manage it every time, but just beginning to cultivate that as a strategy, to me, is what patience is about. Just relaxing with, and even though things are all right, all wrong, somehow or other making it all right at some level. I'm wondering if that kind of makes sense.
Yes, it does. I think just ride it a little bit more, a little bit like a surfer, I think is what that's kind of the image that's coming to me when you're speaking. Yes, thank you. And I'll do a lot of metta for myself as well.
Relaxing, enjoying.
Mm.
Yeah. I think this is a really important question for all of us, because so many people are stressed, so many places are terribly understaffed, and everybody having to do more than they can. And, we need to know what we can manage and what's too much, and be able to say, well, it's too much, I can't do it. Because when we don't do that, we actually just perpetuate a sense of stress, because we're stressed, and so we breathe stress into the environment. And we don't need to do that. We're the fortunate ones. We have an option. We have this these teachings of the Buddha that support us in kind of resting in awareness in a very different way. So I really wish you well with that. It's definitely not an easy situation that you're describing.
Thank you, sister.
I'm conscious that it's almost 8 o'clock, and I'm aware that there may be other questions, but what I would like to do is to end with a chant, chanting the verses of sharing and aspiration. And we'll take it a little bit slowly. Many of you will have done this before, and Wanda will do a screen sharing. Some of you may find it a little bit strange, because what we're doing is we're sharing the blessings of our life for the welfare of all beings. And we're going through a list of these beings, and including the virtuous leaders of the world. And I always like to include the unvirtuous leaders of the world as well, because, as I always say, I think they probably need at least as much blessing as the virtuous ones. And to see it as an opportunity to send forth these blessings, this punya, the fruits of our cultivation, to send it forth to all those places in the world which are really struggling right now. And the final section of the chant is a recollection of the Triple Gem, which of course is a wonderful resource for all of us. So we'll chant this through together, and then we'll finish off finally with the closing homage. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, May the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana. In every kind of birth, may I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. So, thank you. I'll not be back until the 18th of July. So somebody else will be leading the class in the next few weeks. And I look forward to seeing you all again at the end of term. If you want to unmute yourselves and say goodbye, that's fine, we have time. But you may need to do something else now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.